Hello and welcome to episode 9 of The Australian Runner, a show about running and everything running related. I'm Ben, and with me is Chris.
Hello, everyone.
This week we'll be talking about warming up, why it's important, and what you should include in it. Okay, let's get started. We all know a warm up's important, but what does it actually help you with?
The warm-up helps with three key things. The first thing is that it prepares the body to run fast. You put the body through the same motions that you're about to use in your high-intensity running. The second is it prevents injury because you stretch the muscles before and you get used to putting work on them. The third thing is it will reduce soreness and stiffness in the coming days if you're properly warmed up.
So a warm up basically eases yourself into the activity rather than just like getting up off the couch and then sprinting 100 meters.
Yeah, exactly. So that's probably why you should do a warm up for those high intensity running sessions that you do rather than just if you went out for a jog. You probably won't need to do a warm up.
All right. So now, what should a good warm up consist of?
I say there's three parts to a warm up. The first part is you should go for a run. The second is to do some drills or dynamic stretches. The third is to do some stride throughs.
Right. That first part, going for a run, like we said, if you just go for a jog, you don't really have to warm up. But say you're warming up for a race, basically. So you want to start off with an aerobic warm up. Might consist of running or walking for 5 to 10 minutes, just to get some of that blood flowing.
Yeah, so the pace would be really quite slow, maybe 2 minutes or more slower than your race pace. Even starting off with walking, then going into a jog or a run. The aim is that you get the body used to the range of motion in the joints and the legs, as well as promoting blood flow to the muscles so that the blood flow is pumping through the muscles before you start your hard running. It also will increase the respiratory rate, so breathing and stuff, as well as raising core body temperature to prepare the body for exercise.
I know I feel when I'm about 10 minutes into just jog, that's when I really feel like I'm starting to warm up and going faster, because I think for me, my second kilometer when I'm just going for a jog is always a bit faster than my first kilometer. I think that's because I've really just started to warm up. Obviously, like we said, if you're just going for a jog, and you don't really need a warm up, and that's because you're no real risk of injuring yourself and you're not trying to run fast. Um, but yeah, so I've noticed that my second kilometer is always a bit faster, and that if you were going for a race, you'd want to be always doing that faster pace. You wouldn't want to have to warm up during your event.
Yeah, it just starts to click after you've been running for that 5-10 minutes in your warm up. One thing to look at is that most of the elite guys, when they say they're doing a warm up, they'll do 20 minutes of running. And the thing with that is that that's designed to gain additional aerobic benefit before their session even starts. So for them, it's merely not just a warm up, it's also seen as a part of their session that they'll have done 20 minutes of running before they've even started the actual session. So all us amateurs, we don't have to worry about doing crazy things like that. You can if you want, but definitely not necessary from the point of warming up the body and preparing it to run fast during your session.
Yeah, so it's just 5 or 10 minutes should be pretty good for that part of your warm up.
Yeah, exactly. Some athletes also like to do 2 to 3 minutes at their anaerobic threshold or a really tough pace just when it starts to get a bit lactic towards the end of that 10-minute run. This just gets their body used to running fastish. Instead of just slow aerobic pace, you're getting your aerobic system working quite hard before you even start the race. But this type of activity is very debatable amongst athletes. Some are completely for it, some are completely against it. I mean, everyone should just try it maybe once before they race or before they have a training session and see whether it works for them. It definitely doesn't work for everyone.
So the next part of the warm up is doing some dynamic stretching. So this means that instead of sitting still and like touching your toes, you're doing like bum kicks, high knees, grapevines, those sort of things.
Yes, definitely all of those, but also ensure you do some leg swings, both forward and back, and side to side. So you're stretching out the muscles in a movement sort of pattern that you'll use for your running. The dynamic stretches will be designed at a greater range of motion that you actually use for your run. So your muscles are completely stretched all the way through the range of motion and even beyond, so that they're not strained or put under additional stress when you're actually running hard. Yes, some of those are great, the skipping, the high knees, the butt flicks, but there are so many different drills out there that you can choose to do from. There's things such as A skip and B skip, lunges, side walking, and so on. The sky's the limit. You can look them up on a lot of different websites. They'll all have different drills that you do. And whenever I see athletes warming up, nearly every athlete's got a different routine for the drills they do prior to competition or whatever.
Interestingly, I found this study that was looking into people with hamstring injuries and the effects of doing warm-ups, dynamic stretching versus static stretching. So that was like touching your toes, those sort of where you're sitting still. And they actually found that warming up, like the first part we were talking about, going for a walk or a run before your race, that really increases your flexibility in your hamstring. But they also said that static stretching is also really good for your hamstrings, whereas dynamic stretching didn't increase the flexibility. So what we can take from that is that if you have one particular problem area, like hamstring or a quad or something, try and put some extra emphasis on it in the warm-up by doing some static stretching, which might not really help anywhere else. Dynamic stretching might be able to cover everywhere else apart from some key problem areas that you might find you have.
Yeah, definitely make sure you stretch those areas that are most vulnerable or you've had the most problem with. After you're stretching the muscles, the body basically should feel in great working condition and essentially right to go. But there's one thing left.
The last part of the warm-up should be your run-throughs. So you'd usually do about 3 or 4 run-throughs, increasing the pace each time, going from maybe 50 or 60%, working your way up through to 90%, and then do the last one at race pace.
I always like to do these. I usually aim to run 80 to 100 meters for each stride. I focus on technique or holding good form during them. I don't try to make sure I'm relaxed doing them and just getting used to running quick but relaxed. I don't want to strain and stress myself out. It's not the race yet. They're meant to be
just like a final pre-run check. Just
Yeah.
a final pre-run check to make sure everything's in good working order for your race that's coming up.
Yeah, the run-throughs, so they get the body used to running at race pace, what you're about to do. So the body knows what is about to happen. And the body learns to recruit fast-twitch muscle fibers, important for running quickly and efficiently. And it further increases blood flow to the muscles. After this, you should be good to go.
There are some exceptions to these rules that we've sort of been talking about. For much longer events, like probably marathon length, maybe a bit less, you don't need to do as big of a warm-up because you're running a bit slower and without overstraining like all those muscles. A lot of the difficulty of a marathon just comes through the slow twitch muscles that you're using over and over and over. Whereas these exercises that we've talked about are generally more important for faster events that are a lot shorter. So you could do maybe a couple of stride throughs and maybe walking, maybe a couple of dynamics, but you don't have to do anywhere near as detailed a warm-up session.
Yeah, exactly. As long as you got that easy run, 5-10 minutes of jogging at the beginning, a couple of strides.
Yeah.
Stretch where you're sore and you'll be set for a marathon.
Yeah. Okay, I think that ends the first part of the show. So now on to the news.
So the athletic season's really started heading up. So there's a fair bit of news this week. Last Thursday night in Melbourne, the Victorian Milers hosted their competition, and for the first time, money was on the cards for the winners, second and third across the line, provided that they ran fast enough. In the men's 800 metres, Stephen Nucky won with a time of 1:48 and a PB to himself, so it was a great running. In the women's 800 metres, Olympian Annalise Ruby has stepped it up to the 800 metres from the 400 metres which she ran in Rio to win the race in 2:03 ahead of World Under-20 Championship representative Sarah Billings. In the men's 1500 metres, Olympian Peter Boll won in 3:42, a shade ahead of Eddie Vining in a close tussle. In the women's 1500 metre, Olympian Lyndon Hall had her first race of the season and opened it in outstanding fashion with a win in 4:09. I've watched the race, and after the pacemaker Annalise Ruby stepped off the track at 600 metres in, she looked strong to the end and easily could have run faster with stiffer competition and somebody at least around her putting pressure on. Moving over to Canberra, over the weekend, Lauren Wells broke the rarely run 200 metre hurdles Australian record when she ran 25.79 seconds. In the men's sprints, Tom Gamble ran 20.66 over the 200, and Zach Holdsworth ran 10.56 in the 100 metres ahead of Alex Hartman. Melissa Breen ran the third fastest 100 yards ever for an Australian woman when she ran a time of 10.59 during a race. Next week sees the Nitro Athletics Series, and the program this week's been released for the three meets on the 4th, 7th and 11th of Feb. All three programs slightly differ, and in something new, there are no set times for the events, with a fluid program, the aim, whereby once one event's finished, the next will start immediately after. The events are scheduled to run from 7 to 9:30 p.m. each night. Moving up the coast to Queensland, in the Sally Pearson Shield, Trey Williams continues his golden run, winning the men's open 100 and 200 metres with 10.62 and 21.70 respectively. New South Wales hosted their country championships over the weekend, and some of the highlights were Hayden Steele winning the 70-plus javelin 53 years after he won the under-19 javelin, just showing you how your athletics career can never finish. Promising athlete is Tyler Gunn, who won the under-20 200-400 metre double with great times of 21.87 and 48.45. National 400 metre hurdles champion Lee Bennett won the 200 400 metre double in the open category with 21.63 and 49.01 respectively. Another double, Aidan Butcher won the boys under-17 javelin and discus. In the Masters, Annika Milne won the hurdles double, the 100 metre hurdles and the 400 metre hurdles in the 30 to 39 age group with times of 15.29 and 68.85 respectively. Moving over to South Australia now, and last week they hosted their 3,000 metre state championships with Jess Trengrove taking out the women's event in 9:31 and Max Stevens taking out the men's event in 8 minutes 20. We look ahead to the upcoming weekend with the Hunter Track Classic up in Newcastle with plenty of Rio Olympians towing the line, as well as various other meets around the country this weekend.
Thanks for that, Chris. That's it for the show this week. Thank you everyone for listening. You can find us on YouTube, SoundCloud and iTunes as The Australian Runner, and check us out on Facebook and Instagram too. See you next week.
See you then. And the third is to do some stride throughs.